welcome back, or if it's your first time here, I'm glad you found us. It is the week of September 13th, 2022. My name is Amelia, and from Locus magazine, I'm going to talk about some new science fiction, fantasy, and horror books coming out this week. Locus is the monthly magazine of science fiction, fantasy, and horror literature, and some other related books that get jammed in. We've been running it all together in these videos, but we're trying something new this week because we are iterative by nature. Today, we're slicing the pie a new way, breaking it up. So if you're really more of a horror person, or you like science fiction but not fantasy, we're not here to judge because we have our favorites too. Anyway, we're splitting things up by genre to make it a little easier, and we'll put the timing in the show notes if you just can't wait. Books are published on Tuesdays for various reasons, and we try to do this video every week to capture everything new that we know about, and we'll sometimes sneak in a title that came out a few months ago that we either just found out about or that we want to cover in a bit more detail. I have 4 science fiction titles, and we're going to start with the one we're most excited about. From Tamsin Muir, we saw Nona The Ninth, out from Tor.com in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is an epic science fantasy novel. Look, I said it was science fiction. These distinctions matter, and you have to put a line somewhere. Anyway, this is the third in the Locked Tomb series. Nona woke up in a stranger's body, and she's afraid she might have to give it back. From the Sam J. Miller review in Locus, if you loved Gideon and Harrow, will you love Nona? And obviously you already know. Nona the Ninth is very on brand in that it completely scraps the previous book. That's right, all that painstaking lore and the complex relationships and shifting webs of allegiances you spent hundreds of pages learning right out the window. And still on brand, it works somehow. Previous titles in this series have won the Locus Award, the IAFA William L. Crawford Fantasy Award, and been nominated for the Hugo Award, the British Fantasy Awards, and a bunch of others. Check it out. Also in science fiction titles from Gemma Amor, we saw Full Immersion, out from Angry Robot UK in trade paperback and ebook. This is an SF horror novel. A traumatized woman with amnesia finds her own dead body and sets out to uncover the truth of her demise. I mean, you'd want to know it wasn't your fault, right? If you found yourself dead and you didn't know why, you'd want to know what happened. From Brian Trent, we saw Red Space Rising, out from Flame Tree Press UK in hardcover, trade paperback, and ebook. This is a far future SF novel. Harris Alexander Pope, veteran of the partisan war on Mars, hunts war criminals hiding in other bodies. And finally, from Scott Stein, we saw the humorous science fiction mystery novel, The Great American Betrayal, out from Tiny Fox Press in trade paperback and ebook. This is a sequel to The Great American Deception. PI Frank Harkin and his coffee bot / partner follow clues, searching for whoever's trying to blackmail one of the Great American Mall's biggest influence celebs. I want a coffee bot, saying. Maybe a bagel bot, too. Next up, horror. We have 5 horror titles this week. One we're really excited to see is Lucky Girl by Mary Rickert. Mary Rickert also publishes under the name M. Rickert and is a lyrical storyteller with exquisite prose who doesn't hold back from taking her readers to some dark places. Lucky Girl is out from Tor.com in trade paperback and ebook. Gary K. Wolfe reviews it in an upcoming issue of Locus, where he says, Lucky Girl is a club story in the sense that 5 lonely strangers who meet at a seedy diner decide to spend Christmas together and later make an annual tradition of it. During their first meeting, they decide to swap Christmas stories, the most dramatic of which is told by the comparatively well-off Grayson, who recalls confronting the Christmas demon Grampus in an old chapel on his ancestral estate. In keeping with the club story tradition, like the best of Rickert's deadly gothic tales, the atmosphere is one of perfectly distilled dread, the narrative far more complex than it at first seems. And by the end of this tightly packed and elegantly told novella, we feel as though we've read a much longer and quite haunting novel. One of the blurbs on the back is from Daryl Gregory, who says, one of my favorite writers, and she's never been more brilliant. Next up in horror, we saw Fellstones from the prolific Ramsey Campbell, out from Flame Tree Press UK in hardcover and trade paperback. And Campbell has over 30 novels and hundreds of stories out and has won many awards, including the World Fantasy Lifetime Achievement Awards in 2015. So in Fellstones, Paul Dunstan changed his name and left his childhood village with its mysterious Fellstones on the village green and the strange, controlling family that had adopted him. But his estranged stepsister has now found him, bringing with her dark secrets from his childhood. From Bonnie Jo Stufflebeam, we saw Glorious Fiends, out from Underland Press in trade paperback and ebook. This is a humorous horror novella about a vampire determined to resurrect her deceased friends. From Catherine Cavendish, we saw Dark Observation, out from Flame Tree Press in hardcover, trade paperback and ebook. This is a gothic horror novel set in 1941 London, where Violet works in subterranean war rooms. Something is wrong with her memories, and there's a room only she can see. And from Nicole Lesperance, we saw The Depths, out from Razorbill in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a young adult gothic horror novel. Tagging along on her mother's honeymoon, Addie gets stuck on a haunted tropical island and must unravel its secrets to escape. I'm going to stick a couple nonfiction titles in here too. From Ekow, Eshun, a British writer, journalist, broadcaster, and curator who is currently the editor-in-chief of online magazine Tank. We saw In the Black Fantastic, out from MIT Press in hardcover and ebook. This is an art book, an illustrated exploration of Black culture, collecting imagery from the African diaspora that embraces the mythic and speculative and Afrofuturism. Essays by Michelle D. Commander, Eshun, and Camila L. Martin. Another nonfiction title we thought you might want to know about is R.B. Russell's 50 Forgotten Books, out from publisher And Other Stories UK in trade paperback and ebook. This is a memoir/literary musings offering a tour of often overlooked books, fiction and nonfiction, that influenced Russell, himself a book lover, author, and co-publisher of supernatural fiction at Tartarus Press. Finally, let's get to this week's fantasy. We have 10 fantasy titles. We usually have more fantasy to cover than science fiction. From Davinia Evans, we saw debut novel Notorious Sorcerer, out from Orbit US in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy adventure novel. Interplanal errand boy Cian Velo accidentally performs a public act of impossible magic in a city where inquisitors have clamped down on such acts. Davinia Evans' website bio tells us that with a lifelong fantasy reading habit and an honors thesis in political strategy, it was perhaps inevitable that she turned to a life of crafting stories full of sneaky rat bags tangling with magic. Sneaky rat bags. That's your new band name. From Eugene Bacon, we saw Chasing Whispers, out from publisher Anti-Oedipus in trade paperback and ebook. This is an original collection of 13 stories, 2 reprints of transformative Afro-Irrealist Black speculative fiction. Introduction by D. Harlan Wilson. Author Eugene Bacon holds MA, MSc, and PhD degrees, and her work has been nominated for the World Fantasy Award, the British Science Fiction Association Award, and other awards. From Ling Ma, we saw Bliss Montage, out from Farage, Straus, and Giroux in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a collection of 8 stories, each surreal or magical realism, or with speculative elements. From Ian Mond's review in the September issue of Locus, the book's delicious assortment of surreal and conventional stories speaks to the same themes that informed the novel Severance, the otherness and alienation felt as a Chinese American and as a woman. From Stacey McEwen, we saw Ledge, out from Angry Robot UK in hardcover and ebook. This is a gritty fantasy novel, the first book in the Glacian trilogy. A human village is controlled by winged Glacians who steal souls to make their herd docile or hunt them for sport. From Rin Chupeco, we saw Silver Under Nightfall, out from Saga Press in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a queer gothic fantasy novel. A noble but outcast vampire hunter considers whether he should be on the vampire's side. From Kevin Craig, we saw Book of Dreams, out from publisher Chicago Review in trade paperback and ebook. This is a young adult fantasy novel about a boy who becomes trapped in an enchanted book. I mean, if being trapped in an enchanted book was a career path, when I was in school, I might have been interested. How do we know we're not already in a book? From Mariana, Osorio, Gumá, we saw When You Get to the Other Side, out from Cinco Puntos in trade paperback and ebook. This is a young adult fantasy novel about teen siblings journeying from Mexico to the US with help from their supernatural abilities, honed with support from their grandmother. Translated by Cecilia Weddell. From Crystal J. Johnson and Felicity Vaughn, we saw Spellbound Out from W by Wattpad in trade paperback and ebook. This is a paranormal romance novel about a love triangle in a strange hotel with ghost-like residents. From Sophie Kelly, we saw Whiskers and Lies, out from Berkeley Prime Crime in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is a fantasy mystery novel, the 14th book in the Magical Cats series. A local baker is wrongly accused of a contentious in-law's death. From Desiree Mesa, we saw Bindle Punk Bruja, out from Harper Voyager US in trade paperback, ebook, and audio. This is a historical fantasy novel of a Bruja, an illegal jazz club owner in the 1920s, passing for white and dealing with the crooks running the city while hiding her identity and magical abilities. Finally, from Margie Preuss, we saw Windswept Out from Amulet in hardcover, ebook, and audio. This is an upper middle grade fantasy novel. Kids join forces to rescue siblings who have been windswept away, illustrated by Armando Veve. Like I said, we might not tell you about everything the week it comes out. We still love you. We're not holding back on purpose. We promise. Real quick, I want to mention a book that came out in April in case you missed it. The book is called An Arrow to the Moon by author Emily X.R. Pan, out from Little Brown in hardcover. From the review by Alex Brown in Locus. 2 households, both alike in dignity, in fair Fairbridge, where we lay our scene. Luna Chang has everything. Her middle-class parents are upwardly mobile and well-educated. They dote on her. She would describe it as them being overprotective and overbearing and only want the best for her. She's well-liked and Stanford-bound. Hunter Yee's family has nothing. They're always on the move, always looking over their shoulders. His father is bitter, his mother exhausted, and his younger brother Cody anxious. The Yees and the Changs must share space in Fairbridge's Chinese-American community, but their mutual enmity is an open secret. When her star-crossed lovers, Hunter and Luna, finally meet, no amount of parental strife can keep them apart. So that's all the books we're going to tell you about this week. We appreciate the likes and comments. We are at Locus Mag or at Locus Magazine on most platforms. And if you'd like to know more about Locus Magazine, we are a small band of scrappy bookish folk who like a challenge, and we are prone to sighing a lot. We've accumulated some institutional knowledge and a lot of books over the 54 years or so that Locus has been publishing, and we're trying to keep the magazine going, so we'd very much appreciate your support. Go check us out at www.locusmag.com. You can subscribe to the print magazine. Locus is available in a digital edition. Patreon donations start as low as $1 per month. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Come back and see us again soon, and we'll be here next week with more new books.